Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining another lightning lesson by Maven. Our goal for today is actually quite simple. We are going to talk about an AI playbook, which is simply put it's a prompt library. And in order to talk about the why, what, and the how, instead of me telling you about it today, we actually have a special guest. Our special guest for today is Cheyenne. Cheyenne is an AI product manager with symplr. She's been using Playbook for quite some time, almost 6 to 8 months. Cheyenne was actually a student in my boot camp. And so it's always good when you actually have students from the boot camp willing to teach other students. That means that at least I'm doing something right. So our agenda is actually quite simple. We're going to talk about what is a playbook, or Cheyenne's going to share with you what is a playbook, how she uses one, and she's going to run through a bunch of tasks that she uses the playbook for. What's the benefit of using a playbook, and then how you can actually start building one for yourself. And this is going to be fairly interactive. We actually have no slides, so this is good. This is more of an interview and a Q&A with a whole lot of guests. So if you have questions, just jump in. I'll help moderate the entire session. As for me, Cheyenne's going to introduce herself in a minute, but as for me, my name is Mustafa. I'm your host. I actually run the AI-enabled product management bootcamp. We'll talk a little bit about it towards the end if that's of interest to you guys. I spend most of my time actually helping chief product officers build product teams that want to start using AI to become more efficient and effective. Sorry about that. With that being said, allow me to introduce you to Cheyenne. Cheyenne, why don't you say a few things? Just introduce yourself if you don't mind, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Cheyenne. I am a product manager at symplr, and I am heavily involved in the AI initiative at symplr. Like Mustafa said, been working on these prompts for a little over 6 to 8 months now. I find it super fascinating, and I'm happy to share with you guys.
Perfect. So Cheyenne, thank you for being our first guinea pig. So guys, most of these lightning lessons are usually me sharing with you how to use AI to be more productive and effective. But I wanted to really bring in somebody who's gone through the boot camp and has actually now been using it for quite some time. And so Cheyenne is the first guinea pig. So thank you for doing that, Cheyenne. Cheyenne, let's just start with high level. So can you share with our audience what exactly is a playbook? I mean, I use playbooks and I talk about it all the time, but it's a fairly novel concept or relatively new concept. So why don't you talk what is a playbook, and then we'll go into like seeing how you actually use a playbook.
Yeah, definitely. So a playbook is a resource that you keep and maintain that allows you to do repeatable tasks utilizing AI for your product management roles. I guess not specifically product management, but in this realm it is. And so what this is this we provide structure in the prompts that then guarantees that you'll get the same information when you reuse the prompts, which then builds consistency into your practice.
Yeah. How long have you been using a playbook? I know we built one together in the boot camp, but I'm curious, what have you done so far with it?
Yeah, so I took the prompts that we learned in the boot camp and I went ahead and kind of developed them and added pieces to them or removed pieces in order to kind of build my own playbook that resolves the struggles and difficulties that I have in the product management role personally to make it a little bit more obtainable and a little bit more achievable. If I pull up my screen here,
Yes.
I can show you.
Yeah, I know we talked a few weeks ago, and I saw what you had actually taken the base playbook that we created and what you built out of it. I was actually happily amazed and a little bit proud. I love the fact that you're sharing it. So why don't you talk about which task you're trying to automate here first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with the user feedback. So in this scenario, you have a call with a customer and they provide feedback regarding your product.
Yeah.
For me personally, I have a hard time paying attention to an entire meeting for an hour and take notes and make sure that I'm being active in the conversation. It's just a lot to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So this prompt allows us to take the transcript from the meeting and get like a summary and action items out of it. That way we can use it to then move forward with the problems the customers reported or any benefits the customers reported.
Perfect.
Um, Fortunately, it has very limited inputs that you have to add. You can just attach a transcript, provide a product description, and then the rest of this provides a summary of the conversation, positive and negative feedback, key takeaways, and then problem statements that you can use to then build out features of functionality for your product.
Cheyenne, if you don't mind, can you just expand the text a little bit just so that
Yeah,
people who are like me, who need glasses and don't wear glasses can read?
is that a little better?
Yes, please. That's great. Um,
Perfect.
so I like it. So this is more about user feedback. Do you mind actually just running it to see how it actually works?
Of course. So I'm going to take this entire prompt. I already have this spread text filled out as a product description. We're pretending that I run a mobile shopping application. And I'm going to scroll down and copy all of this and come into my piece here. And then I paste this prompt. Can you see my screen still? Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we
Perfect.
can.
And then I grab the file with the transcript in it and I attach it to the prompt. And then once it uploads, we submit.
And the meeting transcript is just is a is it audio, video, or it's
Just a text file. The text
just
file
text?
with
Okay,
with just the transcript from the conversation during the
perfect.
call. And then we have the summary, which provides overview of information and then additional feedback that we can use to move forward. The positive feedback provided and the frequency in which it's highly praised, frequently mentioned, and occasionally mentioned. And then the negative feedback, which provides some context into what that feedback is. Key takeaways, and then problem statements, which you can use to then generate features and functionality for your product if you choose to move forward. The thing I like most about this prompt, like I said, I have a really hard time focusing for an entire hour and being engaged in the conversation. So this kind of provides a way for me to have these meetings while then I can upload the transcript and get the information that I need. It's not up to me to remember or
Yeah.
synthesize on my own what the information was.
How much time do you, so I think this is fantastic, right? Using the structure of the prompt, and we'll talk a little bit about that, helps you give this type of output. How much time do you spend finessing this output till you think it's finally done?
It took me, I'm always kind of working on it. It's not just the living document, but it did take me probably maybe 20 to 30 minutes total of adjusting and finding information. And it involved a lot of sparring with the ChatGPT initially, which was just to give me the information. And then I would probe it more with different questions, which then helped me kind of refine my prompt.
And so let's just talk about, I probably used to because I ask this in class all the time. So I love the fact that you took the task. I love the fact that you actually built a very detailed prompt and you're able to get some very relevant responses. Like, what are the benefits? Like, how much time do you save? How has this helped you?
Yeah, as far as time savings, it's a little bit hard to track that because really the benefit I find from this prompt is giving me a written documentation from the meeting. So I'm not always going to be able to jump on the items from that conversation immediately. I
Mm-hmm.
might need to come back to it in a couple weeks or a month. And if I'm using my personal notes that I took or just my memory, I lose a lot of context and information when I'm
Right.
going to analyze that information later on. So where I find the benefit in this is it really helps kind of recover the thoughts and conversation and provides context into the customer's temperature that I might have lost
Yeah.
between the initial conversation and now.
Yeah. And so it's not, so if I hear it correctly, it's not really about time savings, but it's really about finding information that might be hard to find or that you might just don't have time to look for. And so it
Yes,
helps you become a
absolutely.
much more effective product manager. So I think this is a great example. Can you actually just go through your playbook and talk about all the different tasks that you have? And maybe you can run one or two others if
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. So every item that I have in my working playbook currently is itemized with these exclamation points. That way I know these are mine versus ones that I've found or worked on with the help of a playbook with an outside playbook. So these are like my own personal prompts. I have the user feedback. I have one for technical debt, which I find very beneficial
Hmm,
because I can get information on the technical debt items in our backlog before I meet with the development team, which then guarantees we have a more productive and efficient conversation because I'm coming with information ahead of time and I don't need to spend the time being caught up or brought up to speed.
right.
From there, I have a market research one, and this one I use very frequently because I have a habit of kind of going way too in depth when I'm doing research and just never actually reading the articles. I just keep looking up stuff. So this helps me stay on task by providing a list of information for me that I can then use to do my own market research. Super helpful. This is that creating an epic. So you provide information about your product, you provide information about the initiative and what you're trying to solve for, and then it can provide epic information in the format that you're looking for. A lot of times roadmaps have a very particular way they want epics written, and so it will write it for you in the format that you're looking for. And then from there, I have initiative creation, and this one was actually initially introduced to my playbook by my coworker Brooke. I just added a couple pieces to it, but it's kind of a collaborative effort in getting a prompt that can help us build initiatives that we can add to our roadmap.
Awesome. By the way, Brooke just made an awesome comment a few minutes ago. So she loves the playbook. And I believe, I'm guessing you guys share all your prompts together. So you're making
Yeah.
the entire team is more efficient. Yes.
Hmm.
I think it's perfect.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then these ones I have indented and there's no exclamation point. These are the ones that came from Mustafa's course that I am currently modifying or optimizing to provide the information that I'm looking for. So it's kind of when I'm building my own playbook, that's how I start. Is it I either ask ChatGPT for a prompt and then refine it from there, or I utilize prompts that I found on the playbook or online and then modify it from there. I'm not a self-starter, admittedly. And so this helps me kind of get better at AI prompt writing without relying solely on what I have.
Yeah. I think that's great. And so you have features, problem statements, acceptance criteria, how to learn new skills, and a personal coach. What's the references? I'm curious.
Oh, that references is just like right now it only has the link for this, but it's if I find an interesting article, then I put it in
Good.
references so that way I can refer back to it later.
Awesome. I think that's good. So I would love for you to show one more task, or run maybe a couple other of your favorite tasks, just so that people can see how to use a playbook. But before we go there, just high level, like why even have a playbook? What are the benefits? How has it helped you? How has it helped your team?
Absolutely. I think the biggest benefit I can say about a playbook is it makes product management more achievable and more obtainable. There is a lot of information and a lot of skills that go into being a product manager, and it can be hard to master them all. Utilizing an AI playbook can fill in the gaps where you need them, so it makes it a little bit easier to do this role. The reason that's beneficial is you get consistent results in the same format every time, so you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're going to get and the layout it's going to be in,
Yes.
and you can refine it to make sure that you are excluding any like biases or any like issues or like vague information. You can get it refined so you can get more specific details that then you can act on in the future.
Perfect. I love the two things, right? Number one is just allows you to be a better PM. And number two is that you put all your quote unquote intelligence of the playbook so it's repeatable. Right. And I know you mentioned Brooke, and I know Brooke made a comment. How are you guys sharing a playbook? Or does that happen within your organization?
Yeah, so it does happen in the organization. What we have is a playbook that's available to everybody. And then anyone who has gone through our initial like AI training course can submit prompts to that playbook that then get reviewed by a committee and added or like adjusted and then added. So it's a very collaborative effort. And that way there's no one person dictating information that then limits what we learn. We can all learn together
Yeah.
and get up to the same speed.
So do you guys have a company-wide or a team-wide playbook as well?
Yes, we have a company-wide playbook, and then within my team or my friends, honestly, at work, we have our own meeting that we do every week where we talk about when we've
Yeah.
used AI, how it's benefited us, and share prompts in there.
Thank you. And I know Brian was CPO at symplr, and so he was the one who actually initiated this entire transformation in which he wanted not just his PMs to get up to speed on how to use AI to be more productive, but also the fact that he wanted to create this PM-wide playbook that every PM can use. So it's not the knowledge is not just concentrated to one person. Everybody becomes more productive. We do have a question in chat. If you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you
Yeah,
that.
of
Yeah.
course.
So this is from Tariq, and it is any concerns from any of your companies to plug company information into ChatGPT? How do you get around that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And honestly, it is very heavily related to this product description. So instead of saying my product name or saying the company I work for, what I do is provide a brief summary of what our product does in the industry. And that way we can avoid any sort of sharing private information and it stays more confidential, but I still get the information that I need.
Perfect. I'm curious, Cheyenne, as you and the team and the organization started building the playbook, any challenges or roadblocks you guys faced?
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge comes under the wording that's used in the prompts. We did find that you have to use very specific words that have no like a second context or misunderstood definitions and be very
Yeah.
concise with your prompts as well.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this all the time, right? How you ask questions really matter.
Yeah.
And even so, when you see this format that Cheyenne is using, in which we talk about the role, the input, the instructions, the format, and then below that is a bunch of examples. There's a reason why we have that format. I call it the five keys. And I'm glad to see, Cheyenne, you're still using five keys. Makes me very happy. When you ask a question a specific way, the chances of you getting better quality, more actionable, and non-generic answers increases dramatically, which is one of the other reasons why you want to do the playbook, because you're never going to write the same prompt each and every time when you want to ask this question. So having a playbook makes it easy. And the other thing that Cheyenne also mentioned is that if you think about the playbook, it's really broken into two parts. There's the black and the red. The red section is the dynamic part of your playbook. That's the one that keeps changing, but the black doesn't, which allows you then to get even more faster and more productive. So Cheyenne, why don't you, if it's okay with you, why don't you run another prompt in which you just play around, change the red a little bit so people can see that all you have to do if you write a prompt well, it's highly repeatable, right?
Perfect. Yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's change the product description for this one, for example, and we can say instead of being a mobile shopping application, let's say we're an online banking solution for personal checking and savings accounts. Change the description, and then we can go ahead and grab this, come to our text, start a new conversation. Paste is the technical debt item. What it does is it provides a summary of the technical debt issue that you have in your backlog, an explanation of the work that is required to resolve this technical debt item. And then from there, it tells you the potential impacts, so risks or concerns you may run into in your product if you do not resolve this tech debt item, the
Mm-hmm.
priority, and an explanation as to why it gave that priority, and then actionable next steps, specifically calling out questions you can ask your team in those actionable next steps. That way you can facilitate the conversation. This is not meant by any means to replace conversations with your development team on technical debt items, but this can allow you to come into the conversation more informed with questions already loaded to be able to have a more productive conversation.
Perfect. And I love the fact that all you did was change two or three lines and you
Yes.
were able to get highly relevant responses, right?
Yes, that is
Um,
when I'm making my own playbook prompts, that is something I've been very keen on, is trying to decrease the amount of inputs or changes that I have to make in the prompts. That way I can make sure I'm getting more consistent information and my mood in that day isn't kind of changing the way the results are going to be provided.
I like it. Cheyenne, we have probably about 8, 9 minutes left. So I'm sure everybody's dying to know. So how do you build one? Right? I know you started off with the base playbook that we had in the boot camp that has about 30 plus prompts, or I think it's 35 now. I'm curious, how do you actually decide what task goes into the playbook? How do you build one? I'm curious to see.
Yeah, great question. How I decide what tasks I'm going to add to my playbook depends on how frequently I'm doing them and how much time, mental load, and effort it takes me to complete them. So, looking at like technical debt, for example, in order to understand exactly what the impact of this would be, I would need to go do research. I would need to look at historical information. I would, involve a lot of moving pieces for me. Where with this, I can just have it summarized and provided in one consistent paragraph structure, which I think is a lot easier than trying to do my
Yeah.
own research, honestly. And then from there, once I've decided that this is a task that I need to try and automate more, I either ask ChatGPT, like, what is an example prompt for this? Or I find something online or in Mustafa's resources, and I ask it as it is written. And I look at the answer and see if I'm getting what I want. And if I'm not, then I will kind of spar, like I said, ask questions, refine the information that I'm getting. And then once I've refined it a bit, I go back through the conversation and I look at the information that I'm needing and adjust the prompt and test it again.
Yeah. So if I had to just summarize that, so number one is you only pick tasks that are repeatable, that you do that have a high frequency, right? So those are the ones that actually make it into the playbook. And then the second is once you have that task picked, then you use the 5 keys to kind of write the prompt. You use Chat GPT to actually help you actually write some of that stuff out, right? And then it's just a matter of experimentation to figure out what exactly, like what is good enough.
Yes,
Is that
exactly.
fair? Right.
Yes, and that's
How do you
part of it being
know? So how do you know something is good enough?
yes, that's a great. So I personally believe that you know something's good enough when you have actionable items that you understand that you can move forward with. That being said, I don't think a prompt is ever finalized. I think you can always refine prompts, add more information, clean it up, and they should be living kind of documents and not something that's just static.
Yeah. No, I agree, and thank you. We do have a question in chat. So, can you share real-world examples where Playbook has significantly impacted a company's performance?
Yeah, company's performance specifically, I don't know if I can talk on, but I can talk about product performance, the ability to kind of properly plan our roadmaps using this technical debt prompt. You have, let's say you have 180 items in my backlog. Using this prompt, I can understand the priority of the technical items, and I can make sure that we are addressing those in a priority order in addition to our enhancements. Therefore, we're providing customer delighters and we're making sure the stability of our product is consistent. Real world example, we have a huge technical backlog for one of my products. This prompt allowed me to prioritize, and then using the percentages of my roadmap, I could slot it in and make sure that the work is getting completed before we have any issues arise.
Thank you, Cheyenne. And if you just zoom out of just, so I think the technical debt is fantastic, and I love the fact that you're able to take, I think what you said, about 150
Yes.
items and boil it down. If you just zoom out of that, how else has the playbook actually helped symplr in general?
Yeah, I think the kind of shared resources piece of it has been very helpful. All of us having a shared playbook and working together when we learn new things that help us be more efficient or more effective in our roles, that information gets disseminated throughout the company so that one person isn't, the end all be all.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same information and everyone gets to level up instead of one person leveling up on their own.
Yeah. And then, Cheyenne, if I'm just going to add to it, the organizations that I consult with, there usually are about 4 to 5 key benefits that come down to. First one is just productivity wise, right? So number one is every PM can now save 10 hours or more per week. And if you think about that one, that's for one PM, that's saving 500 hours a year. And that's a lot of time that they can then put on things that are more strategic, which actually ultimately helps the company in delivering impact, right? So productivity is number one. Second is just what Cheyenne mentioned earlier, is that it's such an easier way to level up, right? Especially when you're starting new in product management, it's kind of nice to actually have a co-pilot that will actually help you throughout the way. And it's available, by the way, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it really is helping junior PMs get experience much faster and senior PMs to be able to get the work done faster. The third one, which we found out a little bit later, is that it really has an impact on reducing rework, right? So technical debt is something that Cheyenne talked about. Is really there to avoid spending a lot of engineering resources on things that are not going to have an impact. Or let me take an even easier example. How many times do we write requirements and we miss a few things? Or how many times we just give bad requirements to the engineering team? And all of that shows up as rework. And so if you can actually do better upfront, then you're actually reducing rework. And even if you reduce rework by 10%, that's a huge impact on the engineering team resources and just being more efficient and effective from that one. So that was number 3. What was 4 and 5? Oh, 4 is, this is actually the reason why Brian from symplr came to me, is really is about work-life balance for his PMs, right? In that PMs we know are overworked. And so this is a great way to actually get a better work-life balance. And that actually helps both from Cheyenne's perspective, but also from the company's perspective, because now your attrition rate is low. So that has a huge impact. And last but not the least is that in order, regardless of where you are, sooner or later as a PM, you will have to build some type of an AI-enabled application, right? AI is just going to be part of what you build in future products. And so in order to build AI products, you need to know how to use AI. You can't expect somebody who's never used a mobile phone to build a mobile game. And same thing applies to AI. And so if you can get better at using AI as a PM, that allows you to get better at using AI and think about how you can use it in your product. So Tripti, I'm sorry, that was a long answer to your question, but both from the benefits that Cheyenne's talking about personally to the benefits that it is to the company, there's quite a big chunk. We have another question from Damon. In the paid version of LLMs, your data is private and not used for training? That's out. Sorry, it was a comment. Damon, you're absolutely right. It is. Just make sure that you actually have the settings in which you tell it not to train. So even if you have a paid version, there's a set of settings. You have to go in and make sure that your data is not used. And it's definitely true for OpenAI's ChatGPT. And I think for Claude, I think it's by default, it's not used by training. With that being said, we're almost out of time. Is there any other questions that we can ask Cheyenne before we kind of adjourn? Perfect. With that being said, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to do a little plug. If you actually liked what you saw here, allow me to share. Let's see this. If you like what you saw here and you want to be just as awesome as Cheyenne, consider joining my bootcamp. It starts actually next week on Tuesday. The goal of the bootcamp is actually quite simple. It is actually to help you master AI. And when I talk about mastery, I'm really talking about from a personal perspective, it is about how you can save 10 hours a week, how you can deliver better results just like Cheyenne, and how you can use that to actually advance your career. In Cheyenne's case, or in symplr's case, there's a lot of PMs who've been using AI to actually get ahead and get recognized because, and some of the stuff that Cheyenne's doing, she didn't even mention about having community within her organization, actually helping, being the spearhead at symplr to actually get the team, get the organization more productive. And so if any of these are of interest to you, consider joining the bootcamp. I'll send you the link to the bootcamp afterwards, or you can click on the QR code, but we would love to have you. Cheyenne, since I have you, how was your experience with the bootcamp, or any words of advice for anybody who's considering joining the bootcamp?
Yeah, the bootcamp was phenomenal and honestly laid the foundation for both my interest in utilizing AI and my ability to update prompts. I found it to be really beneficial to kind of move forward and do my own work instead of just regurgitating work that someone else has done. So if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, definitely do it. It's a huge help.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words, Cheyenne. With that being said, we're gonna end our show. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to stick around for one or two more questions. But Cheyenne, great feedback, by the way. A lot of people loved it. So thank you for being a guest, and thank you for being our first guinea pig of basically real PMs sharing real stories. In fact, if you like this one, I have another one tomorrow with a gentleman by the name of Usman Sadar, and Usman is going to share with us how he uses Notebook LM, which is a new Google feature that came out a few months ago, and how he uses that to actually do market research. And he has been able to save not 10 hours a week, but 15 hours a week just by using Notebook LM. So if you like that one, sign up. We have another session tomorrow at the same time at 10 a.m. Pacific. And with that being said, yes, you know what? Can you share the link for tomorrow's session? I will do that right now. Let me first find it. Copy a link. There you go. I will send a link in the email too. Here's a link to Usman's session. Just sign up for that. But I'll send a recording of this. I'll send a link for Usman's session too. And if you guys have any questions of bootcamp, or if you have questions for Cheyenne, please let us know.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.